Greetings, New York rock fans. Hope you're doing well. This is Over Underrated with Fran and Babs. And this time we're joined by Matt Latham from Pick a Disc, returning guest to talk about two quite different bands, even if they were formed in the same city. We have got Kiss on the one hand and Teen Girl Scientist Monthly on the other. Yes, we've done New York art rock, we've done New York indie rock, and now it's just New York rock. So we hope you enjoy and rock out appropriately.
Welcome to the Over Underrated podcast with Fran and Babs. Is it over or underrated?
And welcome to another episode of Over Underrated. It is I, Fran, your co-host, alongside Babs. How are you doing, Babs?
Greetings, Fran. I'm drinking a beer called Pete's Wicked Triple, which is
Boom.
a few months out of date, but so far, so good. How are you?
I have some cold pizza to my right.
Ooh.
And no beverage. So
No
I
beverage.
have some saliva today.
You're doing it
unfortunately.
dry. Oof, risky business.
Dry. It's just dry January, and I'm taking it literally. Perfectly works. Happy New Year, everyone, and the podcast world, and all our listeners. We usually ask by talking about music, and I'm thinking I probably heard one song this year, so this may be a short conversation. But Babs, what have you been listening to this year?
Well, I've been listening to an album from 1979, which I do often listen to around this time of year. I don't know why. Dirk Wears White Socks by Adam and the Ants.
I know.
I'm thinking of learning table talk on the bass because
Remind me of Table Talk, because I can't remember that song.
table talk, do 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 do.
Oh, that one.
Which there is no bass tab for, so I'm gonna have to find it. I'm gonna have to make it up myself, which is always more challenging because I've set myself a secret goal potentially of learning a very, very complicated bass line by the end of the year. I'm not gonna reveal because I don't want to kind of hype it up before it happens. But I think that's a good segue into something a bit more complicated. So I've been listening to that, and for something completely different, have you heard of Peggy by C. China?
No, I've not heard of Peggy.
So I'm going to say, this is quite reductive, but I'm going to say C. China is the UK's is Cupcake, basically.
Oh,
So
okay.
she's a lady who in the music, so it's a very catchy song, a very filthy song, where she talks about pegging a man on the back of the bus. Right,
Yeah,
as one
Yeah.
does. I just saw the reaction from our guest, which probably wasn't expecting that. And the music video is her in the world's tiniest bikini on the back of a London bus, like upstairs in the miserable weather, and then like also interpreting
with a strap on.
no strap on, just very short shorts,
okay.
tiny bikini. But yeah, I kind of missed it a little bit because I think it went a little bit viral November, December, and Charlie XCX, Ellie Goulding, like lip syncing along to it, because that's not the only hilarious lyric. There's a whole section where she's imitating a man who's like, "Oh, China, I can't pay you until the end of the week," and she's like, "Bitch, get down and grease my feet." It's quite entertaining. I don't think you'll like the music, but I think you might like the lyrics if you want to check out something completely different in your 2025.
Yes, send it over and I will give you my opinion.
So what's the one song you've heard so far this year?
The one song and music video I have listened to this year is By the Darkness. I think it technically came out the week before in January, but Justin Hawkins, he's gone full makeover. So his cheeks are like sticking out. He's got like lip filler. He's got like his eyebrows are like up here. Obviously, it's not real.
Okay.
It's all fake. But basically, the song is called "I Hate Myself." So he wanted to have someone who hates himself so much they will do anything to change how they look.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just him smoking a tiny cigarette, singing to the camera like Sinead O'Connor. So.
That sounds quite
Musically, it sounds like glam rock, and it doesn't match the video at all. And he said he wanted to be as fucked up and as weird as possible, because who watches music videos anymore? If you're going to do it, you might as well make it weird. So there you go. For Darkness, I Hate Myself. Check it out, guys.
I think we've got some pretty varied recommendations this year. And I'm wondering what the recommendations are from our special guest that's on here. It is returning guest, Matt Latham from the Pick a Disc podcast. Hello, Matt.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me back.
Hello. Good to have you back. What have you been listening to in the first couple of weeks of January?
Pretty much the first week or so of January is my kind of catch up on stuff that I might have missed at the end of last year, or things I might have either neglected, which sometimes hasn't actually happened this year. I've just been listening to a bunch of stuff I got into like more or less at the end of the year. So I've been listening to the Lauren Mayberry album a bit more because that was like released in like the second half of like December. So I'm really enjoying that. Very different to churches. I'm a big fan of churches. This sounds like it's the ideas that they probably wouldn't fit under the churchy stuff, which I really quite like. And the other big band, I think I saw them live on a whim in November, a band called She's in Parties, who very much of the Wolf Alice influenced era of kind of grunge pop type stuff, and just saw them live. And there are bands where when you see them live, you kind of fall for them there and then. You might just like them listening, but then when you see them live, you go, "That's it, yeah, I get them," and then just listen to them constantly. She's in Parties, my latest kind of holy crap, I love this band. So
Nice. Have you heard the Laura Mayberry album, Frank? Because you're a fan of Churches, aren't you?
I am a fan of the Churches. I listened to the first two singles. I didn't love it, so I've not checked it out. That's also on my stuff to do.
There's too much music, guys.
Matt, have you heard of Bleach Lab?
yes. Yeah, I've got a strong theory that there's a whole subsection of like kind of grunge poppy bands that are very much influenced by Wolf Alice, but you can tell what their favourite song is. So I know the band Couch Party, which I know you've mentioned before. They obviously are a fan of Lisbon from the first album, and because a lot of their songs sound like very the spin off of Lisbon, which is my favourite Wolf Alice tracks, which is why I love that band and stuff. Like Lizzie Esau, who I really love. As well. Her favourite song is clearly Don't Delete the Kisses, because there's a lot of songs that are very like that. But Bleach Lab, I think, must have listened to Blue Weekend a few times because they're very influenced from that era. So I can go on a long rabbit hole about bands and stuff, and like Dead Pony obviously liked Yuck Fu. So so Wolf Alice has a lot to blame for a lot of British indie.
But I wonder if people go past Wolf Alice. You know how like the Killers influenced those bands, but I wonder if people then like discovered New Order and these bands came back, or do they just like start on Wolf Alice and never scratch the surface? Do you know what I mean?
But I think there's probably or people slightly younger who are actually Wolf Alice are at least 12, 11 years old now, so they've probably skipped a bunch of people, so they're probably liking some of these newer kind of musicians who are kind of doing a very similar sound that are based from them.
The first album, I think, is one of the best albums of the Tens. We call it the Tens.
Actually, that first album is one of my top tier albums. I think I must have mentioned that concept last time I was here when I was talking about We Are Performance, about like top tier albums and favorite albums, where like basically like the Premier League of my favorite albums and stuff. My Love Is Cool is very much alongside that first We Are Performance album in terms of how much I love that album.
I was thinking, relatedly, I was thinking, can I name 10 albums I love from the 70s? Because the 70s is really not an era that I know so well. Kind of half segueing into the topic here. But I think that was also prompted by the fact of, I know, Matt, you also looked at your Last FM stats. And just, I was surprised by how much music was from the 2010s and 2020s as someone who is a fan of kind of, music from the past. And I was like, oh God, like the internet really got me this year. Like I think because, it was the fourth year of doing our best of episode, and I follow so many more music publications as well, like Dork, for example. They did a really great countdown. Yeah, really great. I've only just discovered them recently, but it was really amazing because they drip fed their top 50 songs and top 50 albums. So they'd only do 5 a day. So you'd almost like be searching for it and looking for it. And I'm pissed off that there's still, like Peggy by Sea China would have absolutely been in my top 100, but now I'm like, the cutoff has happened. I cannot add it to my best. I have a long list of my top 100 songs from 2024 from different artists. Alas, it's too much. But anyway, we are going indeed back to the 70s this episode, with the theme being, I guess, New York rock. We've done indie rock, we've done art rock, now we're just going to do New York rock, I think.
we can call it New York.
New York, or New York rock. So we're going to be talking about Kiss as an overrated band, and Fran has made the playlist for that to match Matt's selection of an underrated band, Teen Girl Scientist Monthly, because they're both from New York. Very different genres. I wonder how many people on YouTube went from Kiss videos to Teen Girl Scientist Monthly videos as I did. But should be an interesting chat.
Overrated.
But yes, so Fran, why did you think Kiss would be a good idea to do as a band, and how did you make the playlist for today?
So I think this is maybe a UK opinion of Kiss. So in the UK, I guess people may know one or two Kiss songs, and that's basically it. But when you watch, I think I discovered watching American films that they're like gods to some people in America, and they can do stadiums, and like the merchandise is insane. They're like one of the biggest bands in the late 70s. But in the UK, we're like, all right, really? Why? And then like over time, you suddenly hear a few more songs and think, yeah, that's all right. But are they like the best band of all time? So, and like, just, they've sold 100 million albums. This is crazy for a band that some people can only name one or two songs by. And they've still got an average of 15 million on Spotify, which is hilarious compared to the band we're going to talk next, how many followers they have monthly. I think via things like Guitar Hero, I've discovered other songs along the journey. But I mean, I would struggle to make a best of. And like, I don't hate the songs I know. They're not terrible, but I thought it'd be nice to chat and see the Kiss deserved the legacy they have. I mean, they're in their 70s now, and they've maybe retired 4 times. I think they've done 4 farewell tours, and they keep going back for more and more. Like, guys, you can retire at some point. You have enough money, surely. So yes, I just regarding the players, I just chose songs from different eras. I've got a couple from back in their rocky early days, some in their disco days, some in their post makeup, and then a couple in their grunge era. Then I think the song was from their last album. I thought about a finish of a recent-ish song, so I put in a track from Sonic Boom. But yeah, I mean, I've never seen them live. I've seen a couple of documentaries.
Yeah, when you said I've watched my documentaries again, I was like, oh, documentaries, great. That means I don't have to do as much prep. Thank you, Fran.
I think, yeah, maybe like 5 years ago, I thought maybe I should like check out Kiss to see, what's the fuss about. Maybe I'm missing out on something, because so many like American comedians, and like filmmakers adore them. I'm like, maybe there's more than just, rock and rolling all night. So I've watched a couple of like documentaries. I've never watched a film. I think, is it Kiss versus the Phantom in the park or something? But yeah, it looks fucking terrible. And Gene Simmons comes across as an absolute prick. Paul Stanley seems to be a little bit better. And then the other two just seem to have got completely fucked on booze and drugs for the entirety in Kiss before they quit.
Well, yeah, I think Kiss are definitely a band that I feel it's a pop culture reference that's present throughout my life. Like, I don't know when I knew about Kiss and the makeup and the hair and the theatrics, etc., etc. But yeah, I've never really been into the music. I didn't even realize that Paul Stanley was the singer and Gene Simmons, and that Gene Simmons was the bassist. Same. Because everyone knows Gene Simmons, and I was like, well, he must be the frontman. Okay, yeah, so good. Not the only one. I had no idea that they released albums until 2012, that they toured as recently as 2023, or that they have an ABBA Voyage style show of their holograms coming to Vegas in 2027. Guys, let's meet up in Vegas and go watch Kiss. But yeah, like you, Fran, I always thought that Gene Simmons seemed like an absolute prick. He's actually got sexual assault allegations against him. And he said about his wife that he needs her in her life, not just because of love and family, but because she holds me accountable, which makes me hate him even more. Doing a bit of research, I knew that he was Jewish, but I had no idea that he was born in Israel to Hungarian Jewish immigrants, and that he speaks Hungarian, German, English, Hebrew, and Japanese, which is like, well, okay, well, he's a much more kind of global man that I realized. And then I was trying to think, like, why do I hate Gene Simmons so much? And I think it was because he was on a reality TV show that I shared with you, Fran. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, called Rock School in the UK in the mid-noughties. Do either of you remember this show?
I remember that, vaguely getting memories of it existing.
I watched that and The Apprentice as well. I watched it on that as
well. Yeah, so I just went on YouTube, and literally the first episode, I mean, it is quite funny, but the first episode is Gene Simmons going like, I'm Gene Simmons, and I've worn more makeup and high heels than your mummy, or something like that. And then it's like, an arrogant rock star, boarding school pupils who hate rock, will he make them love rock? And I'm like, that is a very good concept for someone like me who really enjoys School of Rock. But yeah, going on the controversy section of his Wikipedia page should tell you enough about the kind of guy that he is. But yes, I think like you, Fran, I was really surprised by the numbers of 15 million monthly listeners, 100 million records worldwide, 30 gold albums, the most of any band from the US. So I was like, yeah, they have some songs, they're fine. One of them I know from Guitar Hero 2 as well, which we'll get into. But yeah, I was hoping that your playlist would kind of open me up a bit more to them and see if there's any music that I liked.
I guess it's hard when we've only got 5 tracks, isn't it?
For such a big band, yeah.
for a band to be going for like 50 years. It's like, well, I have some songs you may know,
Yeah,
but
'cause
I wanted to do some deep cuts. But
AC/DC we did 10, right? So that's a very similar kind of band. But yeah, what about you, Matt? What's your relationship to Kiss?
Again, it is, I think, similar to Fran, where it's like osmosis from pop culture more than anything. Funnily enough, I recently did an episode on The Cure for Picky Disc, and my friend Colin, and they were like his favorite band and stuff, and I was saying about how much that my kind of initial introduction to the Kiss was like an episode of South Park and the Wedding Singer, like a quote from the Wedding Singer. Kiss is something very similar in terms of the kind of, there was a name that's around a bit, and I think as like the global world got closer because of technology and like how quickly we got stuff from the US, and like how we kind of start picking up cultural things that like we growing up were amazed aren't actually done in Britain. Like I was quite surprised we didn't do Thanksgiving until like I was about 9. I was like, hey, we don't do Thanksgiving. We do it on TV. No, it's not. It's not a UK thing. But like there's a few things that come up which jump out to me whenever I remember Kiss. The earliest memories I have is an episode of Family Guy, which I did rewatch last night. It's very very early on actually. It's one of the first couple of Stewie and Brian ones where they go off around the world and stuff. There's a subplot where Kiss. There's this Kiss festival happening, and Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley voice themselves in it. Like there's a whole thing of them like. Peter's like this massive Kiss fan and stuff, and I was surprised how much of the quotes I remember. There's a public access cable show that I watch called Kiss Forum, and I'm saying where like it's just people finally talking about Kiss and like, you know what, that's the late 90s version of podcasting, like public access TV. My favorite show of all time was like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's an episode where a lot of the adults revert to kids, and afterwards they go back to the school, and there's graffiti everywhere, and there's graffiti saying Kiss Rocks. And I always remember, I think Alison Hannigan's performance of the line, Kiss Rocks, why would someone want to kiss? Oh. But yeah, and other than that, I think it's then just gradually the kind of introduction of Gene Simmons as a person, like coming into the pop culture zeitgeist. And I think by the time that reality TV show came about, it's like, oh, there's Gene Simmons from Kiss and stuff. So like it seemed that it was just Gene Simmons and Kiss.
Yeah.
Eventually, when I started kind of looking into it a bit more, and then I can't remember which Kiss song was in Guitar Hero 3.
Strutter.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it was that one. So I did know it. Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, they're a band, and then eventually, I think like my favorite Eurovision act of all time is Lordi, and I remember Lordi and stuff, and I reading into them, I was like, okay, they seem to be quite influenced from the same kind of makeup of Kiss and stuff, and I was like, okay, yeah, but never really listened or delved into them much beyond that. There's a couple of songs I think have leaked out. I think throughout the ages, I think like Crazy Crazy Nights, for example, I think is one that I knew. I didn't realize until much later that the end of Bill and Ted 2.
We were just talking about that before you came on.
Yeah, was which I didn't realize was a cover until like a week ago of God Gave Rock and Roll to You, and I just find it quite funny that like the song that would unite and bring peace to all the world is a Kiss song, which anytime now you want that to activate, let us know. You can start at any point now.
Anytime now.
Yeah, we can really do with it.
Fran, shall we get into your playlist?
You sure can. Babs, I was made for loving you.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
You're welcome. So yeah, this is a song that divided the Kiss fan clan because it was disco, and disco sucks back in 1979 to a lot of rock fans. This is one of the songs that maybe people know because it's one of the most famous Kiss songs. There was a rumor going around that Gene Simmons didn't play the bass line. I think people assumed it's too complicated for him to be able to play, which is a bit cruel.
I mean, Kiss have some great bass lines, is what I discovered from this playlist. And it did make me, I mean, again, I'll never fully respect a man with sexual assault allegations, but it did make me respect his bass playing a bit more.
Yeah, I did a Google on is he ranked as a bass player? And people go, no, but if you can turn your bass into an axe whilst breathing fire, you know.
He's your man.
Yeah, you don't see Peter Hook doing that often. So yeah, it's got like that chugging, like dum dum dum, like a Bee Gees sort of song. Which I will say, actually, I saw them do this live before it came on the podcast, and Paul Stanley does say, "You guys gave us shit when this came out, but this is how we really wanted it to sound." And the live version does sound rather different. It's got a lot much heavier guitar sound to it, and it's got less of a disco-y funky bass. But yeah, it's catchy as fuck. Paul Stanley, I will say one interesting thing about Kiss is Kiss became a big band via touring before they became a popular band. So they had 3 albums, and they were touring to like massive arenas, but they were getting nowhere on the Billboard. And then they released a live after the first 3 albums, which was Breakthrough in America.
Interesting.
Because that's when people first heard that how they actually sounded live. But when you hear Paul Stanley sing this, he sounds terrible. He's literally his vocals everywhere. So I don't know how good. I watched it over 3 eras, and Paul Stanley could not sing it. So I don't know if that's over the round. I don't know why. But I guess people, maybe remember the sparks and the glitter and forget his vocal performance. But yeah, it's a catchy fucking song. I don't mind the original version. I don't mind disco. It doesn't suck for me. So yeah, this is the more poppy side, but I think this killed the band because Ace, the guitar player, he wanted to be in a rock band, and during this period, the teenagers were not turning up, and they're getting 12-year-olds in Kiss makeup, and he didn't think that's cool. This is kind of another reason why he quit the band later on.
Interesting.
So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this song, I think I knew. Part of me probably didn't realize it was Kiss at the time, like until much later. But yeah, I think it was only until like reading into and researching into a bit of this song that I realised that it was actually supposed to be taking on disco characterizations and stuff. And once you've read that, it's like you're like,
oh yeah,
I'm like,
but you never thought about it like that because it's a Kiss song.
Yeah, and I'm like, and part of me's like, Matt, you host a music podcast. How can you? Why did you not notice this stuff? And then realise that, Matt, you market yourself as the worst music podcast host. That's why. But once you hear it, you can kind of hear like the kind of Motown style like stuff. It feels like, sometimes where you see on YouTube where you got guitar covers where people put backing, like they'll play an instrumental version of a song, and then you suddenly got like a 15-year-old kid just like playing like a heavily distorted guitar over like a pop song or something. It sounds like that, like Kiss are kind of doing that over a Motown beat, but they've replaced the bass and the guitar with like rock stuff. And but yeah, I think it's catchy enough. It's fun. It wasn't my favourite from the playlist, but yeah, I think it's fine. It wasn't insulting. It knows what it is. You can kind of feel the tongue in cheek, because I'm pretty sure, apparently, from what I read, that they wrote it to say it's very easy to make a disco track, and you can kind of feel that kind of fun aspect of it, particularly with the way that it performs the do 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 bit. Like you can kind of like, these people are not taking this as seriously, and I can't hate that. I can't hate bands that don't take themselves seriously.
Yeah, I mean, Fran, you mentioned the kind of commercial element of Kiss, which I think is a major thing. Not only did they have such an amazing and unique look, they have merchandised the hell out of everything. And that seemed the way with this song, right? Where it's like simultaneously they wanted to make a disco song, but didn't want to make a disco. Like it was clearly very focused on what would be popular. And I was like, that is quite interesting that it's so transparent, and maybe it was quite transparent back in the day on how they wanted this to be. So I think I first heard this song as interpreted by Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor in Moulin Rouge, because in the Elephant Love medley, I don't know if either of you were obsessed with Moulin Rouge in the early 2000s, as me and most of my girlfriends were, but there's a song called Elephant Love Medley where they sing bits of different songs, and they sing a bit of I Was Made for Loving You, even though they changed the lyrics. So I think I listened to that first, and then I was like, oh, that's the reference? I never heard this before. And yeah, I think like Matt, I think it's fine. I don't hate it, but I don't especially seek it out. I think on re-listening, the bass drives it way more than I had originally realised. I think because, especially I associate it with Moulin Rouge more, and obviously that has no bass really. I can appreciate the bridge. The falsetto was incredible. So it was surprising you, Fran, when you were saying that Paul Stanley's voice kind of live doesn't sound good, because on record it sounds incredible, I thought. And I have to mention our frequent guest, Youngblood, has done an absolutely phenomenal cover of the song. Did you get to watch it, Fran? Because I sent it to you like a few hours ago.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, what did you think?
I never thought when I started the podcast that we'd be discussing Youngblood
so much.
More
So much we're discussing Youngblood. But I was absolutely blown away, because It's a cover. It starts as like a piano ballad, then it goes, into more of what the original sounds like, a bit more synthia and a bit more drums. But then it goes to an acoustic guitar, piano and strings. It's like 4 songs in one. It's amazing. And what's quite refreshing is there's lots of men being like, I'm 52, but this is incredible. So I really recommend to all of you to check it out because it is obviously a classic, and I always like it when someone can take a classic and really make it their own. Like, I think I prefer Youngblood's version to the original, to be honest. Don't shoot me, Kiss fans.
It's co-written by Desmond Child, the guy who co-wrote most of Bon Jovi's back catalogue as well.
There is a Bon Jovi vibe with a lot of, especially when you watch them live. I was like, yes, I'm getting flashbacks.
They don't seem to be picky on who writes songs. Kiss. As long as they've got a hit, they're happy. Like, if we've got a song later on which was written by the guitar player that sacked 10 years previously.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
So yes, this was near the end of the classic Kiss era, because after this, Peter Criss and Ace Frehley would basically just drop off. And then before we know it, they were makeupless. But before then, we're going back to 1974 with the debut album. And yes, I think like my colleagues here,
podcast colleagues, yeah.
I discovered this whilst playing Guitar Hero. I can't remember 1, 2, or 3, and thinking, oh shit, another Kiss song I actually quite like. And yeah, so this is the harder sound of Kiss. It's catchy as fuck. I guess the chorus is basically the guitar riff, isn't it? Really. But yeah, as I mentioned previously, this wasn't a hit, and it's only until they released Alive in, I think, 1976 when it became popular to the rest of the country, a bit like Cheap Trick. When Cheap Trick,
I was thinking exactly the same.
Albums,
yeah.
And they had to release a live album to get popular. I think that also on Guitar Hero 3.
Surrender, baby.
But yeah, I love the crashing drums. I love the yelps by Stanley. I love the bouncing Gene Simmons bass line, and I love how Ace just sort of like adds licks all around the song. And yeah, I would say this is a class song, but sadly I've not really found anything else as good as this. Maybe Detroit Rock City, but yeah, I guess I enjoy probably the harder mid-70s Kiss rather than the late 70s Kiss. But what are your thoughts?
I just did double check it. It's Rock and Roll All Night that's on Guitar Hero 3, so I didn't play this one because that's the only one that of the Guitar Hero ones I've played. But this one, I ended up listening to the whole album. So I started listening to this, and this was actually a lot more subdued than I was expecting. Because it's a lot more kind of glam rock than the heavier kind of traditional Kiss song I would have expected. So like this was like on the verge of almost being T-Rex at one point. I was quite surprised at how. And like a crossover with Queen in times, I think, when Queen does their kind of less bombastic stuff. But no, I was quite like. I think a lot of it was the kind of shock of them sounding different to what I was expecting. Like I can't expect them like doing like fireworks to this song and stuff. But I quite liked just how, in comparison to some of their later stuff, it felt more traditional, kind of just rock rather than heavy, kind of glammy stuff.
I have no idea what the song's about, by the way. Anybody else?
I did not look at the lyrics. I think I looked at the lyrics for some of the others, but also Strutter it's interesting because you obviously think stutter, but
yeah, but to be fair, like I think anyone could write a Kiss song. You either got to sing about having a party or how you want to fuck a girl and how she's going to enjoy it. Basically, that seems to be the two subjects that Kiss sing about.
I think it's about women, because the chorus is everyone says she's looking good and the lady knows it's understood strutter, so maybe she's strutting her stuff.
Maybe, yeah, I guess.
But when she wants, she'll pass you by. Ow. It's another lyric that I hadn't realised. But yeah, like, thank you, Fran, as ever, for an excuse to listen to a song from Guitar Hero 2. So Guitar Hero 2, Matt, was the only one that I played. And that every time I remember that, I go on to like find a Guitar Hero 2 playlist. So today I was listening to Kansas and The Sword, which is great. So that's my overwhelming association. And again, kind of similar to I Was Made for Loving You, I think it's fine. I don't hate it, but I never, with these two songs, I'm like, I enjoyed listening to them 2 or 3 times. And watching this one, I watched a live version, which really showed how amazing Paul Stanley's voice was. Like, to be able to sing like that and play the guitar at the same time, it was pretty incredible.
So what era was it? Was it 70s?
I think it didn't have the year, so it was a bit difficult to tell, because like the video quality didn't seem terrible, but I couldn't quite tell. I think it was more maybe 80s. I like the guitar solo. Again, I like the driving bass line. I thought it was interesting that Wikipedia said it was one of the few Kiss songs written by Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley together. Again, I presumed that Gene Simmons had written more songs, but I think it seems not, right, Fran, from looking at the discography.
I mean, do you know that they brought out an album which is all 4 of their solo albums in one package?
I did not know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was basically, yeah. So isn't it like each of their faces? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
a quadruple album.
Well, is it like 4 solo albums, or was it just like?
I think you can buy them singly, because I remember, interesting, Ace Frehley's one sold the most, which is odd since he's not the main singer. But I think now you can buy like all 4 together.
Over underrated.
So the next pick is, as mentioned earlier, Crazy Crazy Nights. I have had a crazy night. I've never had a crazy night. This is this Kiss without the makeup. It's this Kiss fitting in with contemporaries like Poison and the Motley Crue. It's their leather and spandex era. It's high kicks. It's thrusting tongues. It's thrusting cocks. It's a one catchy single. Top 5 in UK, the biggest hit in the UK. It's strong rock and roll you can't take seriously. I love the bridge up to the chorus. Not a big fan of repetitive one-word choruses when they keep repeating the same word again and again and again. Crazy. But yeah, it worked for me. But watching the video, even though you had 4 official members of Kiss, even during the guitar solo, they kept moving the camera away from the guitarists to Gene and Paul constantly. Like, no, we only care about those 2 members. But yeah, it is probably one of the most well-known songs in the UK. And yeah, I don't hate it. I probably prefer it to Motley Crue and bands of that era. But what are your thoughts?
I've always liked this song. I think I don't know. There's just something, again, I think there's a kind of weird self-awareness of Kiss at times. But I think that might be more towards Paul Stanley than I think Gene Simmons. I think in terms of a weird self-awareness of like knowing like how cheesy they can be. This one I think is their attempt at trying to be earnest, but I think but also still coming across as like just kind of fun, upbeat song and stuff. And again, I can't dislike it. I think it's really good. I think it's catchy. Lyrically, there's nothing there apart from like everyone's fun. People that like us are enjoying it. Blah blah blah. Let's just have some fun and listening to music that we make, and everything. But it's just that it works well, and then they just seem to throw in like a random key change, like about
two.
Okay, yeah. And one of them is about like 3 seconds before the song ends and stuff. But yeah, I think that I just really quite like it. I just think it's simple. I don't think there's nothing too complicated in it. In research for this, I knew I had this memory of something of a piano cover of this song, and I actually checked my MP3s, and when I found it, I found a cover of this song by, and I can't find anything about them, a collective called Bigfoot or something, featuring Sun for Moon, I think. Yep, Bigfoot featuring Sun for Moon, and it's this slow kind of female singer piano led type thing, which seems to like predate the John Lewis covers. Yeah, and I was like, and it couldn't come to me that I actually this was when I was buying stuff off iTunes still, and I bought this single off iTunes, and I'm trying to remember where the hell I heard it, and I did a bit more research, and it came from an advert. There's a Smirnoff Ice advert. Of this like going like this very quiet single piano led thing where it's like going crazy nights on this piano stuff, and I completely forgot I had it, and it just all flooding back about me being obsessed with this cover of the song. From a Smirnoff Ice ad of all places.
Love it. So yeah, as I said, I didn't know this song, and I was surprised to see them looking very normal on the album cover. And I looked up the information about that before listening to the song, and it was like, this album is notable for its pop metal sound, and I was like, ooh, this could go either way. Pop metal, ooh. I did not like this song. I think I'm glad to hear you both say that, like, it's basically having a laugh, because I was like, this almost feels like a parody of itself. I cannot believe the audacity of 2 key changes. But I did enjoy the music video where Gene's guitar is on fire. Like, I just found it very, I think, like you were saying, Fran, the crazy, it annoyed me. And I was like, with a Eurovision staging or a Kiss staging, I'm sure it's fun, but musically, yeah, not for me.
Moving on to other silly rock songs. So yeah, this is one of the most recent songs I found. So I think the last album I remember coming out because I was working in HMV then, 2009, was Sonic Boom, which got to number 2 in America, guys. Insane. And I picked a Gene Simmons song because I wanted to show off the other vocals, guys. Actually, I think technically in America, the biggest Kiss song is sung by the drummer called Beth, which was the B-side to Detroit Rock City, which is a sickly sweet ballad sung by a cat.
Cats love it.
This isn't a sick sweet ballad. This is about Gene Simmons wanting to fuck people. In his 60s still. Yeah, he's still a randy demon. He's gonna come whether you like it or not. That's basically the lyric. Okay. Crunchy production, an unnotable bass line since he wrote it. And it's just a typical rudimental latter stage rock song by a band who I assume were just doing a civic tour. Yeah, I'm shocked that they even charted it. This album even charted, because surely by 2009 people saw Kiss just to see flames and Gene Simmons' tongue and his heels rather than new music. But yeah, I wanted to show off, the latter stage Kiss. So, what are your thoughts?
To me, this sounds like bands releasing albums at the same time that were influenced by Kiss, but influenced by the fact that they were listening to their parents' record collections of Kiss. So there's something weird. I don't know. There's just something like a weird
copy of a copy
of
a copy.
So it's like, it sounds like the bands that were coming out. I can't think of anything on top of my head, but there's that kind of late noughties sound of kind of rock, where it's like slightly polished, or it might be because it's probably because the recording technology had probably improved the sound quality of being able to record stuff equivalent to the 70s and the 80s. But it does feel like a different band influenced by Kiss in places. And
yeah, it does. To me, it just sounds like, oh shit, we need to make an album. Let's find a producer and people who can just make us sound like a bit like Kiss. There you go. That sounds close enough. That'll do.
I actually quite enjoyed the song. I was like pleasantly surprised. I guess because
of the lyrics.
Yeah, because it's Gene Simmons singing, my favorite person. I think because, yeah, from what I know of Kiss, it is a bit more glammy, melodic-y, which is not so much my thing. Whereas, this is a bit more in the minor key. Or the chorus goes in the major key, but I forgive them because the rest of the song is good. And I quite like the change in pacing in the song from fast to slow. Like at the beginning, and as well towards the end, and I think the guitar solo is really good. So I actually think, guys, this was maybe my favourite song from the playlist. Shockingly.
Who would have thought?
It's a Kiss song from 2009. Who would have thought?
Well, enjoy Sonic Boom. So finishing off with another lesser known song, but it was a single, is I Just Wanna, from 1992. And yeah, this was co-wrote by Vinnie Vincent, who was the guitar player who replaced Ace Frehley in 1982, who they sacked. So oddly, he came back to write some songs with them. And then he tried to sue them for not giving them enough money. The video is terrible. Apparently, the reason it's so bad, though, is because they were told they had to make a music video, and the director had one day whilst they were in London, so he just filmed it in a room as fast as possible. But yeah, this was like, hey, we can be grungy and rocker because
it's 1992. Yeah,
but God Save Rock and Roll to You was then put on this album to try and sell it further. Although that song does nothing like anything on this album. But yeah, for me, this is terrible. But yeah, I mean, trying to just try. I wonder how smug they were when they thought, hey, if we say forgot, it sounds like fuck, so we can have fuck on the radio. Yeah, it just sounds really, really lame and childish. Like, oh yeah, we can talk about fucking, but get on the radio. It's so yeah, it's just tedious rock trying to force into the grunge era with the album Revenge, and it wasn't for me. But I was just surprised this was a single. What are your thoughts?
So yeah, I think very similar. This is like they kind of want to get into that 90s sound, but they still have that like rock side of them, so they don't go full grunge. But there's something, particularly in the early 90s, where it sounds like everything was recorded in an industrial warehouse just before the crowd waiting outside came in. If I don't know what it is, like a lot of stuff sounds like it was recorded in an empty warehouse, which is how you can tell it's in the 90s. But yeah, you can kind of see where they kind of thought, oh, let's try and be a bit darker and stuff. But again, out of interest, I thought, okay, I'll listen to some of the album, and yeah, amazed that God Gave Rock and Roll to You was on this. He said, which stands out like a sore thumb. And then there's another song, Every Time I Look at You, which is them basically saying like, oh, what would happen if we tried to be like Jim Steinbeck and Meatloaf? And it just sounds really weird.
Babs, I just want to
Listen, I think a song that starts, I got a body built for sin and an appetite for passion is a hell of a way to start a song. And here I'm in on the joke, and like with Crazy Crazy Nights. And because I'm a child, I thought the I just want to F line is quite hilarious. And it also, I mean, come on, the Who were doing it back with my generation as well. And there's like a Beach Boys section in this song, which is really, because you're like, okay, this is like Kiss revamped, but then there's this like quiet harmony. So I wrote, I really enjoyed this as an experience. We'll probably not revisit again after this episode. But I will read a YouTube comment that I enjoyed, which is a woman saying, I just broke up with my boyfriend after 19 years of wasted time and no commitment. I just had to crank up the song really loud. He was a control freak, a manipulator, and a dirty, lying, cheating, unfaithful son of a bitch. Like Paul Stanley says, it's time to take my chances and find somebody new. So there we go.
Was that posted by Shannon Tweed by any chance?
Unfortunately for her, Matt, no.
Do you know that he dated Cher as well?
And Diana Ross, I learnt.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, and Wikipedia was like, they had live-in relationships, and I was like, what the actual fuck does that mean? And I looked up and it's just like, oh, they lived together before they were married. Right, okay, that had an expression.
Yeah.
I thought another thing to check out, when they came back in 1996 with the original lineup, it was a secret at the Grammys, so no one had known that they're supposed to come back together, and the person who introduces them is Tupac.
Oh wow!
Wow!
And he seems so happy to be introducing Kiss. Like, really? This was not what I thought would happen.
If only rock and rap had melted a little bit earlier.
And did you know that also Gene Simmons reportedly wrote a song with Bob Dylan, which has never been released?
That's like the Grimes Azalea Banks song that I'm still waiting on. I briefly went on Paul Stanley's Wikipedia, and you mentioned Lordi, Matt, and apparently Lordi released a song that Paul Stanley had written called Like a Bee to the Honey. So clearly they've been in touch since Lordi won Eurovision. And apparently in 2014, Paul accused Ace Frehley and Peter Criss of anti-Semitism, which is not great. So clearly that's all going on. But I did find it quite interesting. So I think his wife is Catholic. And he says, we've raised our children 100% Jewish and 100% Catholic. And it's like, yep, guess that's one way to do it if you've got two competing faiths. But yeah, I think I knew that Gene Simmons was Jewish, but I don't know why. I guess maybe he talks about it in his reality TV shows, because I mean, he wasn't just in the rock school one. There was also one with his wife. I feel like I must have seen him in more things. Like he must have been in maybe panel shows or something like that in the 2000s. Because I feel like, how do I know so much about him when I wasn't really into his music, but I was into television?
Yeah, in the 80s, he became an actor more than being in a band. And a lot of the time, apparently, they reckon that he wasn't even in the studio. He just appeared in a music video on stage.
Okay, last question. Anyone assume that Gene Simmons and Richard Simmons were the same person?
No, but I would love to see Richard Simmons on stage with Kiss one day.
So the question, I suppose, Kiss, are they overrated? Shall we start with our guest, Matt? What do you think?
I don't know. This is going to be a completely different answer for someone who's American and someone who's not. Because from the British point of view, I'd say no, because we probably haven't had that much of exposure to them, like perhaps as much as the US does. But then again, perhaps if I was American, I'd probably go yes.
Fran?
I have listened to probably 30 Kiss songs, and I probably like half a dozen. I've watched a film about them called Detroit Rock City with Edward Furlong. I've seen 2 feature-length documentaries and endless interviews, and I would say that I would have enjoyed seeing them live back in 1978. I would not want to just be listening to them on my headphones. So yeah, I think 100 million is ridiculous. So for me, they're overrated.
Yeah, I agree for similar reasons, because I think I can understand you know, them playing live as not being overrated, right? Like them playing live sounds like absolutely rated. They were doing theatrics that no one else was, and I think it's quite savvy. You know, they were brat before brat guys. They knew what they were doing. They were the brats of the 1970s. But their music just isn't. It just doesn't stand out for me that much. It's interesting to read about Gene Simmons talking about his influences, where he's like, you know, I wouldn't have done what we've been able to do without the Beatles. There were these skinny guys with long hair, and that made me think I could do it. And he talked about like he loves British rock and how, I can't remember which song, but it's basically, he said it's like direct rip off of Slade, and how he really loves Slade because they played good live shows, but they were kind of, you know, light with it, light on themes, which is interesting. But yeah, I think there's so many other bands that fall within similar categories that are more interesting than Kiss. So I'd say, yeah, musically 100% overrated. Branding and marketing wise, well done, guys. Well done. You did good.
That's the end of part 1.
Do you like music? Do you like podcasts? Chances are you like music podcasts. Take this one for example, Pick a Disc, where every fortnight a guest comes on to talk about an album for whatever reason they want to. Sometimes I like it, sometimes perhaps even something else other than just like it. You just listen to the podcast and find out. We talk about the album, we talk about the songs, we talk about the artists, we talk about tangent things that are slightly related, and sometimes we deviate off tangents. But don't worry, we always bring it back in the end. But you can find us on all your social medias and all the podcast apps for searching for Pick a Disc. You can also find us on the part of the We Dig Podcast Network under Linktree/We Dig Podcasts. And until then, happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.
Underrated.
Welcome back to part 2. We are doing a sharp turn to a different band altogether from Kiss. We have Matt's choice. And Matt, this is your underrated pick. We'd like to introduce them and why you chose them.
Yes, this is the Brooklyn-based kind of indie pop band Teen Girl Scientist Monthly. I keep using the word pick, which is like, you know, I feel like I'm about to suddenly take over and start hosting this by mistake because of the language I'm using. But I think, because I remember you saying that I think like quite a lot of times people use this podcast as an excuse to talk about their kind of lesser known favorites and stuff. Teen Girl Scientist Monthly, I think, like one of the biggest kind of finds that I've got, and a lot of that I think is, to me, Teen Girl Scientist Monthly is like proof of a couple of things that have always annoyed me a bit with music, in terms of people saying, oh, music's crap, or like there's like you're force fed like certain music and there's nothing for you at all. So for me, I think if people take the effort to look and search for something, then I think you'll find something that like will click with you and tick a lot of kind of boxes you'll like and stuff. And Teen Girl Scientist Monthly is that for me, kind of thing. In fact, I think Teen Girl Scientist Monthly are probably the closest I'll probably ever get to hearing something that would sound like, if I had any talent in music and I had a band, what would they sound like? And I think Teen Girl Scientist Monthly is probably the closest I'll probably ever get to that kind of thing. And also I think there's a whole discussion about like the morality and like the use of Spotify, because I know Babs, you're kind of anti Spotify anyway, but I listen to it quite a lot, but I'm quite a fan of the algorithm side of it, and maybe because I keep using the app and I've trained it to a certain point. Like pretty much all my Instagram adverts now are kind of like female-led grunge pop bands now, and that's probably years and years of saying, no, I'm not interested in mold removal, I'm not interested in bloody stuff like that. And I think Spotify, and I discovered this band through Spotify because of kind of like the algorithms are learning what it's been doing. And that was purely because there was a setting which I don't think is there anymore, that if you used to click a playlist, you could create a similar playlist. So I had a playlist of about 10 songs from 10 bands that I really, really liked, like Los Camasinos, Johnny Foreigner, Fire Like Apes and stuff. And I was like, oh, what's this do? Right click, create similar playlist. And it came up with a 10-song playlist. And the first song was a song from Teen Girl Scientist Monthly. Never heard it before. It was one of the songs that is on this playlist. And I started listening to it and I'm like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. And then kind of forgot about them until later on, where I realized, then I discovered, because it was quite late at night, I think I discovered it. Then I came back and realized that I'd saved like a couple of the albums on a playlist, came back, listened to the 2 albums like back to back in a single sitting, and I'm like, okay, I really like these, and then just basically got obsessed with them, and like pretty much I think over the winter of 2018, just listen to that like now, particularly the second album non-stop, and yeah, and it's just like ticks so many boxes for me.
Matt, are you the sort of person that when you discover a band you like, you want to find out as much as you can about the history of a band and the personnel? Because I couldn't find out the lineups. Because looking at the videos, I can see the lineup has changed a few times. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I couldn't find out anything ever listed who was in the band for each year.
I got that through Bandcamp, but I could I'll get back to that in a second. But kind of my relationship with this band is kind of weird because I kind of really got into them. Ordered the stuff like vinyl from online, which got sent straight from Brooklyn as well. Like handwritten notes saying, "Oh, Matt, thank you ever so much."
Oh,
I think
that's nice.
like
Yeah.
you're the first person to discover us via Spotify, which is really cool and stuff. Like, and then I think they released like the third album, Anxiety Lead, in 2019. Bought that. That album came like my favorite album of 2019. The album Hypertrophies. The second album is like one of my like all-time favorites. It's like in my top 5 albums of all time now. I even managed to get the courage to email Matt Roy Berger, who's the kind of chief like creative person between them, and emailed them to say, "Oh, do you want to come on the podcast?" And they replied and said yes. And to this day, Matt Roy Berger from Teen Girl Scientist Monthly is the only guest on Pick a Disc to ever talk about their own album in 170 episodes, because that was my 50th. I wanted to do something special for my 50th episode, so I just emailed Matt Roy Berger and just said, "Do you want to talk about Hypertrophy?" And they went, "Yeah," and I went, "Okay." So yeah, and also I think a couple of years ago I had and I sent Babs a photo of this to prove that it happened. I chose Hypertrophy, the second album, to talk about this record listening club, and like tag the band saying, "Oh, I'm going to be talking about this album stuff," and then Matt Berger again, they contacted me saying, "Oh, I can send you a bunch of like the vinyl if you want." If you want to hand out, and basically
That's what
sent
you want
me
from a relationship with a band, isn't
yeah,
it?
so
Like,
and I said, "Oh, they're probably gonna send me about like 3 or 4." And at work, this box turned up with 12 of them,
wow.
12 copies of the 12th album of the second album, and pretty much gave them to all the people that turned up on that evening. So there's a photo of me and a bunch of people that went to this record listening night with holding up a copy of the album.
Have they ever come to the UK?
No, I think they had a website and it had like but I think it's gone offline now. But they had a kind of like a detailed list of where they've played, and a lot of it is like New York State, and I don't and I can't remember much. I don't think they kind of ventured much west that often. I think the kind of closest they ever went was, I think, like Connecticut. I think so. They're kind of much like
Really
a local.
not very far, yeah.
Yeah. Like so they've not really played much outside of New York or Brooklyn stuff, and they don't play often much anymore.
So it is kind of amazing that you discovered them through an algorithm, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's so like they feel like a kind of very like local Brooklyn-based band, and like they've only played like a few shows over the past few years. And the time of recording, actually, they're playing their first show in about a year tomorrow. Right, and they're debuting a brand new song for the first time in like years. So, but they have recorded quite a few live sets on like YouTube or Facebook. So I've ended up watching quite a few of the sets through them. There's one set that they've like played, and it was recorded on a 360 VR camera. Which if you had a VR headset, you could have sat and watched. But I pretty much ended up just move the mouse around, looking at the stage and stuff. So the closest I've ever got to seeing them live was just watching them on stage. So
okay, that's one of the benefits of Spotify. You can discover music from anywhere.
Yeah, and it is interesting that you mentioned the algorithm, because I definitely, I was on Spotify between, I'm going to say like 2014 and 2022, maybe something like that. And I remember having my Discover Weekly phase, where it's just like, right, every week you check, you save a bunch of stuff. And that is definitely how I discovered bands. But then I have to say, I kind of became overwhelmed at some point, and I was like, too much music. I mean, I mentioned this occasionally on God's Jukebox, which is also a way that I discovered music, because it's this music social network where everyone picks a song every day or every week or whatever. But yeah, I always think about like, how do I discover new music now? Like, it is still maybe a little bit algorithmically, because I'm not on Spotify anymore, but Tidal, like Spotify, has the kind of related artists, which is pretty decent, or Go to Song Radio as well. And every now and again, I'm like, yeah, I'm in the mood for more of this. I'll go. Although I will say, I'm probably more likely to do that with older music, where I'm like, I don't know. I've listened to a lot of Sean Paul recently because for some reason, when I went to West Africa, I can't remember if I mentioned this, but when I went to West Africa, that was the music I heard the most. And it's like, that is not what I was expecting to listen to in Senegal, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely still discover music through, music streaming sites, but not in the same way. What about you, Fran? Because you're still on Spotify, right?
Yeah, so I guess it's trusted playlists from so I would go to, you mentioned like Dork. So I will get a playlist from certain magazines or radio stations. And then that way, then I will dabble with the Scoogles. I guess I'll pick a genre and say, albums I may have missed. And then I don't tend to rediscover much random stuff on the algorithm. I have to go searching for it, which I tend to do for this podcast now. So when it gets to about October, I think, oh shit, I need to catch up, and I scramble through hundreds of playlists to try and find songs. But yeah, before that, I used to read magazines. Imagine that.
Yeah, I remember those
but
days.
Yeah, I do miss discovering music through magazines.
Well, even though I might have stopped because I've stopped receiving it in the post, I mentioned that there is a Belgian, but when I say Belgian, I mean Wallonian French speaking, because of course nothing in this country is straightforward. There is a free music magazine which for 8 months I got sent it in the post, and it is literally here is some new music from the French speaking part of Belgium, and it was incredibly diverse, from folk to rap to rap, and I've discovered so many new bands that way. And because they'd have a little tag of what kind of music it was, I'd be especially if I'm on public transport, I'm like, okay, right, I'm in the mood for new music, let's read the magazine, and as I'm reading the magazine, I'm going to add songs to my playlist. And I've discovered so much great Belgian music that way, but only a very specific type of Belgian music.
But and going all the way back to the original question that Fran asked me about the band members. So basically what I've gathered from basically speaking to Matt from the band as well, and just from what I've gathered. So originally it's Matt Royberger is the kind of main creative force, and it's them and Morgan Lynch, who is the main female vocalist, who've been there since I think the beginning and stuff, and then kind of known each other. I think they knew each other from college or art school. I can't remember off the top of my head. But then they've gradually kind of had different people come in and out throughout. So through the early EPs, there were certain people. There's a violinist at one point, which kind of ticked that box for me initially, because I quite like a violin in the band. Eventually, I think for the second and the third albums, for a good chunk, they kind of had a stable lineup. But then with the first album, Melissa Lusk turned up. She's married to Matt Royberger as well. I think the most stable lineup throughout was Matt Berger, Melissa Lusk, Morgan Lynch, Dan Mullenberg, I think, was the drummer, and then Pete Scalazzi, who I think is a synth and accordion, who also actually taught Dan Radcliffe how to play the accordion for the Weird Al film. So I'm one of the members of this band.
Wow.
And a guy called Eric Tate. I think Dan Mullenberg, has left the band, because I'm pretty sure couple of years ago they was advertising his final gig with them at some point. But so they had a kind of a consistent, the majority consistent lineup. But I think a lot of it is I think Matt Berger is the kind of main creative force. I think they pretty much write all the lyrics across the songs, and then everyone else kind of just sings along. And there's 3 vocalists, so I love multiple vocalists.
Fran, had you heard of them before?
Of course not. No. And bloody hell, Google hates me. The amount of times I type in the band, it goes, "Do you mean this scientific monthly magazine?" No. No, I just had to type in band after typing each time. So yeah, I was struggling to find much and every time I found an interview, the website had vanished, or it's a Tumblr thing that was impossible to read. So yeah, I was struggling to.
I think their biggest kind of achievement in terms of publicity, I think they was listed as a kind of must listen to band in 2013 by BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I do think if I ever turn up and Fran has heard of a band that I've actually brought up, then I probably would have failed.
Yeah, but with Fran's knowledge is deep. Fran's knowledge is very deep, so yeah.
It's a challenge.
Wouldn't surprise you.
I like the challenge.
But that's why I was shocked when I looked at the monthly listens. I thought, fuck me, it's 941 a month.
Well, do you want to hear a fun fact that Matt and I were messaging each other about? So I used to be in a band called The Ruz, when I was at Warwick Uni in the mid to late 2000s. And the former front person, Charliza, I didn't realize she'd made an Instagram, and there are photos including me in the live concerts that we played. And I shared it on Instagram, being like, "Holy shit! What a blast from the past! I haven't seen these photos in ages." And then Matt messaged me, and he's like, "I looked it up, and there's 0 monthly listeners, and I don't think I've ever seen zero." And I was like, "Yeah, we like they." I say we. I was only in it for a short time, but they only existed for a few years, and they were featured in BBC Coventry and Warwickshire. I think they were on the radio, and they were featured in a kind of like local bands type of thing. So I can say I've been in a band with 0 monthly listeners. How underrated am I? Thank you very much.
Matt, so regarding the few amount of listeners they have on Spotify, but they have had quite a lot of albums. So is it completely DIY? Have it ever been signed?
I think it's all DIY. I think they've had 3 kind of full-length albums, but then they've released a couple of EPs, singles, or kind of collective, kind of like collections of like weird kind of offshoots and stuff. But it's all DIY. I think it's all kind of done themselves. All the kind of vinyl kind of and CD inlays are all done by kind of friends of the band, and it's pretty much like very strongly kind of independent DIY recorded stuff. So I think a lot of it, I don't think they've ever been signed. I think pretty much it's all self-released. So I think it's kind of like, I don't want to say hobbyist, because hobbyist seems to
a passion project.
Have passion project. Yeah, passion project is a better word. Hobbyist is like the wrong word, I think. But like it's a passion, like it's like a hobby, a passion project that's like they put a lot of heart into it.
Yeah. I mean, you feel that with the music videos, which I'm sure we'll get into. Like some of them are quite charming. Yeah, like I always like to have just the tiniest bit of context. So I'd obviously never heard of them either. And then I think from their Bandcamp it says, Teen Girl Scientist Monthly is a 6-piece rock group from Brooklyn. They sound like Rah Rah Riot and Clap Your Hands Say Yeah making out in the bathroom. And I was like, uh-oh, because the only Clap Your Hands Say Yeah song that I know is This Love, and the guy has a really annoying voice. And I briefly listened to Rah Rah Riot, which was a band that I think I'd heard of but never heard, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure I like this either. But then I saw another interview where it said their sound is more and more a seamless blending of dance punk, and I was like, dance punk, I can get behind. So I was like, okay, I have these two conflicting worlds in my mind. Let's see what's going to happen when I listen to it.
Over underrated.
Let's begin. What's your first pick, Matt?
When I decided to pick these 5 songs, I was like, okay, I need 1 or 2 songs that I kind of really like. I need a variation of, I need to showcase at least all 3 vocalists as well. So yeah, so I've kind of gone for the more kind of lively, rambunctious kind of stuff, and and perhaps 1 or 2 of their more played songs, or like so. Yeah, so if anyone's listening to this that may have someone who might in a small niche of the internet have heard 1 song or some of the song anyway, but yeah. So the first one I've picked is from like an EP from 2010. So this is from their EP's Pioneer Ghost, and this was actually on the closing credits for a while of a kind of YouTube sketch comedy called no, it's either Britannic or Britannic. Basically, one of them is the guy that's married to Karen Gillan.
Oh yeah. I've seen it. He's got a podcast, hasn't he?
Yes, yeah. I can't remember what his surname is, but
Nick, Mr. Gillan.
Yeah, Mr. Gillan. Basically, so this song, the kind of whoa, 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 whoa bit, is the song that plays over the closing credits. And if you look at the YouTube comments of this video, you see a lot of people saying, it's Britannic or Britannic or however it's pronounced. So a lot of people get them from. So this is probably the closest they've got to kind of some sort of cultural like osmosis through this. But also I like this because it's not the first song of theirs that I heard, but this is just like has a lot of stuff in this that ticks. I often talk about box ticking about things that I really like in music. So like there's kind of gang style vocals, there's like female vocalist, there's a violin at one point, and it just feels really, really good. It's sometimes conventional in terms of how it's structured, and it's just really fun and really catchy. And that whoa whoa oh bit is just an earworm that has never left me for about like 7 years.
Yeah, so I know you're a fan of Los Campesinos, and yeah, as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, this sounds like an
Yeah.
American lost something else, including like, yeah, the violin and the male female dynamics and everything. I suppose it's 2010 because it seems that earlier. It seems like kind of like the mid noughties indie explosion. Do you know what I mean? That this sounds, especially with the what
Exactly the same thing, Fran.
and I thought there's so many UK indie bands who had that hook and that sort of like guitar playing sort of sound and the hi hat on the drums thing happening. So yeah, I said it sounds a bit like New Pornographer is a bit like Los Campesinos. It has a lot of elements that I'm very fond of. Maybe because I've heard this so much with so many different bands, it kind of taints this for me because I feel like I've heard this too much already. But it's a sound I like, but maybe because I've heard so many different versions of this kind of song, I didn't adore it. But yeah, it's definitely my vibe and a good first song.
So I will say that this was my least favorite song, just to kind of warn you of what's coming next. I really didn't like this song. I don't like her voice. I even thought her accent was annoying, even though later on that doesn't bother me. I thought it was a very twee beginning as well, which is not my vibe. Though by the time she's talking about going on a safari, I was like, okay, I can get on board. And yeah, I wrote exactly the same thing as fans of like, oh wow, these Ohs are so literally mid-noughties indie, but they didn't add much to me again because I was like, I've kind of heard something like this before and I didn't really like it with the bands that plays it. But I will say I did enjoy the nice low budget music video, which kind of showcases each member of the band. And I quite enjoyed the sound of the lyrics. So it's, I waive my presence of pretense and save my questions for the end. I trade my obsession of a sense, the sense has met its end. Ooh, lovely bit of business. I don't know what it means at all apart from going on safari, but I thought, okay, this is seemingly smart music, but yeah, musically not so much for me. But yeah, that's the most negative I'm going to be about the band.
I think that I quite like the video. I was trying to see where, like, part of the fun of that video is trying to work out where everyone is in that room.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, are they in different? Like, are they filming it at different times? Like, it was quite clever.
Yeah, but then there's a bit where they kind of flip the cameras around.
Yep.
And like, and you say, oh, okay, they're in the same space. I do think the pianist and the violinist are in different rooms and they recorded separately. But yeah, I think it's quite a good video.
What's the second pick, Matt?
Second one. This was the first song that I'd heard from them, and again, yeah, going back to the Los Campesinos stuff, I think anything that reminds me of early Los Campesinos is immediately going to get my attention. And there's very much a Yumi dancing aspect to the riff of this, and I just kind of like how fun and summery the song is for a song. Well, the song with the summer in the title. It feels like it does feel like that the song is like running down a hill and just getting faster and faster and faster and faster until everyone crashes into each other, and I just like how fun and upbeat it feels.
Exactly, I put it down. This is the perfect song to watch on a cold, miserable January afternoon. I want to be in New York running with these guys. I love a video of people running. I said it before. It's high energy, fuzzy. I feel sorry for the drummer. He seems to be left at home because apart from him doing the clock thing, he doesn't seem to be having any fun with them. Yeah, again, early Los Campesinos with a Idlewild guitar sound.
Oh yeah, I'm not
There you go.
Yeah, we still need to do an episode on Idlewild for sure because I still only know one song. Oh no, two songs. Sorry, two songs. Yeah, I like this song much more. I wrote similar to you, Matt. The song really runs along, and then when you watch it with a music video, which is very wholesome, and it feels like it's like all the cliches of like American teens in the suburbs. I will say though, like I think maybe for me it's a bit too wholesome. I was like, I don't know if we'd get on. They seem too happy. I like nice people, but I don't know. So yeah, I did like that element, but I did find it a little bit repetitive in places. Like, in the verses, the bass is playing like one note. The drums are very simple, unlike other songs later on in this playlist. And rhythm guitar is playing the same chord over and over again. So I was like, oh, it feels like there's more potential here. And I'm not quite on board the train yet. Yet is the operative word.
Okay.
So what's your next pick?
Next pick. So these are two songs from. Interestingly enough, out of 5, I've picked 3 of the songs are the first songs of each album. So I've picked 2 from Hypertrophy because basically I'm addicted to this album. I think it's one of the few albums in my top 5 I could actually rank. This is probably like my fifth favorite album of all time, I think. Hypertrophy. I've gone for a song in the middle, purely because I've got a memory of playing this song. So we've gone for Away, which is about halfway point of Hypertrophy. Um, when this song played in the off the record record playing clubs, basically everyone was sat down, just listened to this all the way through in silence in this in a on the first floor of a cafe in Birmingham. There's a bit where the chorus kicks in, and my friend Rob, who's been on Pick a Disc, looked at me, and this is really hard to do in front of a on an audio podcast, but just looked at me and went, and just like nodded with this like smile and stuff, and
with pursed lips of joy.
Yeah. And I know for a fact that he's like a massive Go Team fan, and. I love the Go Team, particularly when they just seem to go full on, like, let's just throw everything at the kitchen sink and record what's coming through, and hopefully it sounds good, which I think this does. This kind of builds. It's one of the few Teen Girl Scientist Monthly songs that has tag team vocals, which is. If there's one thing I kind of wish the band did more, was having multiple vocalists turn up in several songs. But when I interviewed Matt, they said it was basically so that if they're playing the songs live, you could sit down and have a drink while someone else sings,
Practical.
or they can just focus on the guitar, and vice versa. But this is Morgan Lynch, and then who's the vocalist in the first two songs, and then Melissa Lusk doing the kind of call and response bit. I didn't have if the playlist was longer, I would have put in a Melissa Lusk solo song. She has one or two an album. I also quite like the kind of duality between them, kind of like firstly the kind of like fighting each other, and then basically going, you know what, let's arm in arm, and then just like venture down and basically do a massive deliberate reference to Be Your Own Pet in the chorus.
Really? I hadn't picked up on that.
So so if you listen to Adventure by Be Your Own Pet, basically the chorus of this is the exact same chorus. So we are adventuring.
Oh wow!
We are adventuring. We are adventurers.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. This is when I need to look at the lyrics. You're correct.
Yeah, another catchy, energetic blend. I like to start off with a shuffle and a whisper, then you get that call and response vocal. It's got a vibrant big chorus, which we now have found out where that came from. I thought the keyboards remind me of Stereolab. I don't know if you guys know Stereolab. Yeah. It's got a jump around the room meter of 8 out of 10.
Very specific meter. So, Matt, this was much more like it. I loved the beginning with the drumsticks clacking. I thought the bass beginning sounded very much like Heartbreaker by Metronomy. I don't know if you know that song.
Metronomy, another band that I've never listened to. So
the album that comes from, which I think is called Nights Out, or like top tier album, really really good album. And Heartbreaker. But I was like, this is no bad thing. I really like Heartbreaker by Metronomy. When the singing started, I was like, "Ooh, this might go a little too melodic for me." But when the synths come into the chorus, they're gorgeous. Like, it's so unexpected, and the arpeggio is really, really nice. The instrumental middle 8 is lovely as well, and I like the fact that you think it's ended at one point, but then it comes back. And I said this must be very fun to watch live with all these different sections. This one definitely was a song that won me over to the band, and I thought it was the most original so far.
Okay, track 4. This is the first song off Hypertrophy. Interesting enough, when I was speaking to Matt, they were saying that they deliberately want to start each album with a different instrument. So Summer Skin starts with the guitar. Dark Rip, which is the song I'm talking about now, starts with the bass, and then the next song, which is the first song off the third album we'll talk about in a second, starts with the drum.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that. No.
But yeah, Dark Rip. This is one of my second favorite off the album. It's probably my second favorite song. It's my second favorite song from them. My favorite song I didn't put on because of time and stuff. But this song, I absolutely love this. I think it's a great way to start an album. It builds. It feels like it's supposed to be upbeat, but the lyrics are actually quite dark. And I think the band do this more in the second and third album, where they start experimenting more with layers of different instrumentations, and they just start experimenting more with that synth noise. And the idea of them kind of just building up stuff in Summer Skin gets like amplified here as the song builds in intensity. Those layers of things come in, the guitar coming in, and then when you get to that final chorus, like it's like feel real screamy stuff. And I really wish I would be able to sing this live at the band one day. I just love how this song builds and ends. That final chorus, I just love how that sounds.
Yeah, it feels like this was created for the live audience. It's even got that sort of like rat-a-tat-tat drumming, can imagine people clapping along to it. So yeah, I would love to see the song live. Yeah, I love the DIY punk energy. And then I just loved the guitarist, how raw it was. And then I put down, I love the double team when you get that guitar solo, and then the synth solo comes on, sort of like takes it with it. Yeah, and it starts off. I thought this is fine. Then the last third was brilliant. I thought this is a great track. Odd video.
Yeah, I love the video.
So I was confused, thinking it's definitely is a guy singing, isn't it?
Yeah. As in, yes, in the song, but no in the video.
Yeah, and in the video, I was thinking,
Fran, what is gender, man?
I know. But when it's a new band, I'm thinking, what's happening?
I think since then, Matt Berger's come out as non-binary. Since then, so but yeah, because I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I've not actually put any of Matt singing in it yet, but and I kind of wanted to kind of go in kind of like chronological order. So yeah, so there's a lot more. So there's a lot more of songs, particularly in the first album, where Matt's singing as well. So there's a lot of difference between the two of them. So I thought, okay, I need to bring in Matt Berger singing now.
I was surprised. I was like, oh, okay, I'm used to two women, now it's another person. Yeah, like I feel like you can tell that this is a song from, it sounds similar to Away, it's from the same album. Yeah, I love what I call the Bumblebee synths, the urgency, like they are very good. Like again, as someone with ADHD, this is good music to get the dopamine hit, all of it. We haven't got wah-oh-ohs, but we've got uh-oh-ohs, which yeah, these ones I like. And I really love the drums in this song. I think the drums are great and are really the driving force. And yeah, when I think back to the drums in Summer Skin, which are so simple, here it's much more. And I adored the video. I thought, my God, how clever. This is all filmed in one room. There's clearly trickery here. But you just, you get again, because also maybe we romanticize them as non-Americans of like, oh, it's a Brooklyn basement. Like, oh, how fun. Like all these kind of fun, hipstery looking people having a good time. Yeah, I really liked it. But Matt, what is it about? Because I was looking at the lyrics and I have no idea.
When I spoke to Matt, they'd mentioned that it's actually about his mum who was going through, I think, lymphoma.
Oh God! Time. Okay, yeah, that's so very dramatic. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of stuff on kind of like grief and kind of loss and that kind of coping with that. And considering how upbeat and carefree Summer Skin is, there's a lot more kind of underlying darkness. And I've always loved stuff that sounds upbeat or has a kind of kick to it, which sounds like it should be upbeat, but has an underlying darkness to it. Again, Los Campesinos. Yeah. Los Campesinos is the la la la, we're going to die, la 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 type stuff. Later albums probably not much, but early Los Campesinos definitely that. So I love that kind of dichotomy between them. So you know that meme where it's like there's that pink house and that kind of black and white house, and people saying like
my music taste.
Yeah. That's basically the same band is the music, the lyrics. That's kind of like my mixture of it. And considering from what you know of my music taste, and this is the first introduction to this album, it might suggest why I quite like this album.
Yeah. Well, because I saw, an elegy, and I was like, okay. But then because he says tubes going out and tubes coming in, I think I just thought of the London Tube, and I was like, I thought of like public transport, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. Now when you talk about illness, yes, makes a lot more sense. Yeah, no, I wanted to mention as well that I didn't write this down because I didn't know how to reference it, but basically one of the comments on the I Was Made for Loving You YouTube video is basically like, Kiss's music sound, and it's like, rock and explosion skull, and then it's like the lyrics and it's like a heart, some chocolates, right? Because I Was Made for Loving You is a very soppy song, but it sounds very, very rock. I'm a fan of that too.
Underrated.
So what's your final pick, Matt?
So the final pick, I've gone for the first song from Anxiety League, which the third album. So this was from 2019, so it's currently still their latest album. I think since then they've only really released one song, which was like a B-side, like a random fun song that they'd song called Hot Shit and Falafel. There's a familiar face in that video. You might. Who's also in the thumbnail, which is me. So they did a casting call for people to just like film themselves, and I sent mine in. So you basically see my turtle action figure staring at pizza. But other than that, this is still their kind of last thing that they've kind of released properly. So and since then, I mean, to the point in the Hypertrophy liner notes, they've actually saying coming soon, a new member of the band, and they got a ultrasound of Melissa Lusk and Matt Berger's now daughter. So at this point, they're parents. I think since then they've now had a son as well. But yeah, so this album has parents who are all through it, and the first song, Wizard Daughter, is pretty much like introduction of like the key life change that they've got, and it's very much very similar. You can tell it's the same band, but also they're doing other stuff interesting. And the first time I listened to this properly in a while, and I listened to the album a few times for the first time in a long while as well, and I just forgotten how much instrumentation there is in this, and as a kind of introduction to a new like phase of the band of like there's a section where it kind of carries on normally, and then suddenly the kind of melody kind of changes. There's like the guitar line changes, there's synths kick in, and then just that chaotic energy that's in like Summer Skin and in like Away, for example, comes in a similar but also kind of fresh way, and it's like, oh, okay, they're doing something different, but it's still Single Scientist Monthly. It's kind of like how Wolf Alice seemed to like do something different, and you can still think it's a Wolf Alice track. It's like, oh, they're experimenting and doing other stuff, and yeah, I think it's a really strong. I mean, personally, I think mainly because I think of Dark Rip and that album. I think that's probably still my favorite opening track of their albums. I still really like this song as well, and I think it's like it's a song I wouldn't mind giving them to first to introduce the band to. If no one else has heard of any song before, I'd probably pick one of this song to help introduce them to the band as well.
Yeah, but I think this is maybe the best song. I would say this would work even without vocals. The vocals, I guess, are just a bit more shouty when they come in, but it's sort of the Simpson guitars to slap you in the face. The keyboard line's glorious, kept it all together. I love the musicality. The only thing I did notice is that I couldn't really hear the bass. I don't know if that's because I'm listening on Spotify, but everything else was like, yeah, it worked brilliant for me. The only thing, the sound reminds me of another band, and I cannot pick up what it was. I don't know if you picked up, but yeah, I love blends of keyboards and guitars. All my favorite bands have, since New Wave, all through Britpop, have been bands with like keys like Suede and Pulp, etc. So yeah, this is the band who I am happy to discover.
So yeah, I find it interesting that you say it's your favourite song, because I thought this one was a bit less interesting, I have to say. I thought it was a bit repetitive, but maybe that's just because the vocal line is, and I haven't paid enough attention to kind of all the different instruments coming in. And I think all the songs have really, again, they're really energetic and drive along, but I don't get as hyped up with this one. I don't think it's a bad song, but I think it's fine. And yeah, I like the music video in black and white with, is it their daughter in the video, Matt? I imagine.
Yeah.
It's really, again, I think Matt has some, presuming that they're the person kind of coming up with the ideas, it might be them and the rest of the band as well. But it's such simple ideas, so well executed, which I really admire. Again, like I do love a clever lower budget music video. So yeah, I think the video makes the song more atmospheric, as do I think most of the videos that I've seen. But yeah, this one didn't stick with me. Like, in my opinion, I think Away is the best song to introduce them to, but that's just my personal taste.
I mean, my least favorite song was Safari, but that's the chorus I've got in my head still. So
there we go.
I think perhaps even a drawback, I think, is because it's limited to 5 songs. There's still like a side of the band that isn't represented on here, which is there's not many, but there's quite a few songs, like 2 per album, where they slow things down a bit and kind of build and get a lot more introspective. I think like this song called Snow Cones off Hypertrophy, which is about 6.5 minutes long, but it's one of the few songs that surpasses the live limit and survives because of how he kind of like slowly builds up stuff. And there's a song there's a Don't Look at the Sun, which is the last song off this album, which is pretty much like almost like their attempt at a ballad, which is like, again, quite different to that. They're a band that you can't really sum up in 5 songs. There's just a lot going on, and yeah, there's still a lot more to discover from this band as well, I think, if you stick and listen to some of the albums.
Well, there we go. So if you like the sound of some of those songs, definitely as per usual, the songs from Matt's playlist and the songs from Fran's playlist for Kiss are in the show notes, so you can go and listen to them and do some further listening and check out Matt in the music video as well.
And hopefully we can find a link to that Smirnoff cover as well.
Yeah, I got that. I'll find that for you right now.
Cheers.
I mean, we haven't mentioned how many monthly listeners they have. I'm looking at it; it's 943, which is really very low. I mean, I guess it's interesting, Matt, what you said of like they are clearly a very local band. Is it maybe because they were making indie pop as indie pop was starting to become a little bit less fashionable in 2010? Could that be part of the reason why they haven't broken out as much, or the fact that they've kind of focused most of the attention on the New York area? But it does surprise me, given we've mentioned some of the bands that they sound like. I think a lot of people our age would be interested in music like this. It definitely reminiscent of other places. Yeah,
I do think. Yeah. I mean, jump into whether they mean to jump the gun about whether they're underrated over or underrated enough. But I do think that in a slightly different world, like I do feel like they could be a band that's probably touring a bit more, or if they had the opportunity to find that bigger fan base. Like how you got some bands that seem to like tour every couple of years and like just like live like their own life and then come back and somehow manage to like fill like the middle room of an O2 venue of like several hundred. I feel like they could they've got the musicality to be able to do that. I think it's just a shame that they've never had the opportunity to get that audience for it.
Would you travel to New York to see them, Matt, if you had the time and the opportunity?
I did, yeah. I went to New York last March, and I was planning on stuff, and I did message the band's thing saying like because they played the February, and I was going at the end of March, and I'm going like
any chance,
yeah. I guess you're not playing any gigs around there stuff, and it says like let me know, and Matt replied after saying like, oh, so sorry I couldn't find you anything, but
yeah, I mean, I was mentioning the numbers to ask. Yeah, I mean, I think we know you think they're underrated, Matt, but Fran, do you think they're underrated?
Yeah, and probably one of the most underrated considering the numbers. But yeah, this is a band that I would definitely enjoy listening with if they were in Minute Jamaica in 2006 or something. I think if this band were in London or in 2006, they would have been signed, and played on Radio X. But I don't know. We don't know the situation. I don't know if they were all in full-time jobs for their entire career. I don't know. I guess because they haven't toured out in New York, that maybe they have other commitments. I guess that's why they could push it. But there's not a song I don't like, and I enjoyed at least 4 out of 5 songs. So I should definitely delve into the albums.
Yeah, I mean, I think I only truly loved 2 of the songs, but I think, like you say, with numbers like that, I'm shocked. I'm shocked because whether I like them or not is, I think, kind of irrelevant, because what they've absolutely got going for them is, their musicality, as you said, lots of elements that we all like of synths and guitars, and some surprises as well. Like, I think their songs are not predictable. When you listen to one of their songs, you don't know where it's going to end, which I really appreciate. And like I said, that their arpeggio in a way was absolutely stunning. So I'm not surprised that was the song that you said that like everyone's like, oh, okay, here we go. So definitely check them out and give them a listen and buy their stuff on Bandcamp, and message them when you're in New York as well. Why not?
Out of curiosity, I mean, what's your lowest number of monthly listeners that an underrated act's
I think this might be it. I think we've maybe had like 1,000 or 2,000.
Babs Band doesn't count. I've just double checked because my previous episode with Performance, because they've got a name change, so they've actually got two artist entries in Spotify. Performance on their own was 458, and We Are Performance was 310.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've mentioned this before, and it definitely needs updating because I haven't done it in years, but I do have a playlist still on Spotify called Under 5,000, which is like my favourite acts with under 5,000 listeners. But because I haven't updated it in years, I think some of them will have more. Like Nova Twins were in there at one point. That's how much someone can grow. But if you, again, we are doing this because we want people to discover the underrated brands, and I guess that might be the message for today of... train your algorithms, find those obscure playlists, because you never know, like you might find a band that really gels with you.
Yeah, and I discovered WH Lungs last year.
Yeah.
The old Spotify, and hopefully seeing them in March. So
okay, yeah, of course, yeah.
You can still find tiny bands before they break up.
Yeah. Matt, thank you very much for coming back. You're only the second ever returning guest. Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
I'll try and get through quickly because I do have podcasts. I'm involved in 4 of them.
Oh, it's gone up to 4 now. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's gone up to 4. So yeah, the main one that will probably the main one that would kind of get everyone's attention to listen to this is Pick a Disc, where I speak to a person about an album that they want to talk about for whatever reason. Most of the time it's albums that they like. So I've not had anyone bring an album that they absolutely hate yet. So but yeah, so that's a fortnightly one. On the last Fridays of each month, I've got a podcast about narrative and point-and-click adventure games called Ask Us About Loom. So if anyone's played games like the Monkey Island series or anything, I'm a massive fan of those, or walking simulators and that kind of stuff. That's about that. That's very similar to Pick a Disc, but instead of albums, it's that. And I'm a kind of co-host of 2 other TV-led ones. Shipwrecked and Comatose is a Red Dwarf podcast. I'm on a team of 5 of them. So if you're a fan of the BBC sitcom Red Dwarf, there's that. And coming back after a long hiatus is a podcast called No Book Club, which follows the TV series Yellow Jackets.
That's my personal favourite after Pick a Disc, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting because I wasn't much a fan of series 2, so season 2, so that's going to be interesting to talk about. Yeah, so those are the 4 ones you can find me on. So if you absolutely like my voice, you're in luck. If you absolutely hate my voice, well, listen to them anyway, and maybe I'll change your mind.
Where can they follow you so they can find all 4 podcasts?
Yeah, if you go to, I think, Linktree / Matt J. Latham, you can find links to all 4 of those podcasts on there. So yeah, that's the quickest way without me spending another 10 minutes.
And but you're on Pick a Disc is on Blue Sky and Instagram, right?
Yes, yeah. Pick a Disc is on Blue Sky and Instagram. Ask Us About Loomies as well. I'm also on both Instagram and Blue Sky under Matt J _Latham as well. So if you want to find my personal stuff, and personal Instagram is basically just a bunch of live music that I've
no, you also watch TV.
See, so. Oh yes, that as well. Yes.
Great, thank you very much, Matt. Fran, any final thoughts?
No. No. Keep listening to independent bands because it's harder out there, and so many of our favorite bands are having to juggle with jobs between their other music. So it's great that people can still release music before they quit. Because last year, I think 3 of my bands I liked ended. So this hopefully in the future, indie music and rock and roll can pick up again and people can make a living.
I will add on to that because Queen Kwong, who I've mentioned before on the podcast, she has an excellent Substack. And she wrote a very interesting article, we mentioned Spotify, where she says, she loves it that she has fans who are like, right, we're going to buy the album, we're going to buy the merch. And she's like, but it doesn't matter because streaming numbers are the most important. She's like, if I want to get booked, if I want to do this, like, people are not looking at sales, they are looking at streaming numbers. So like, if you want to stream. And I was like, oh wow, that's an interesting perspective because yeah, here I am all high and mighty, like, go on Tidal, do this, but they're not checking those numbers. And yeah, part of me wants to be like, but no, you must dismantle the system, which I think maybe is my final message. Dismantle the system, absolutely, launch Daniel Ek onto the moon. But maybe do both, maybe if you're streaming, keep streaming, but yeah, still remember to go and watch the live shows, buy the merch, etc. But actually maybe streaming is a bit more helpful than I previously thought.
Interesting enough, all the stuff that I buy physically I end up just listening to on Spotify anyway.
Same. Like I'm unless I think the only time I really listen to CDs that aren't on Spotify is if I have people over. Like if I'm having people over for dinner or to hang out, then I really love handpicking CDs. Like, oh, okay, who's coming? What's their music taste? What am I going to put on? That's really fun. But that is really the only time I do it. Have more dinner parties with music, guys. That's my other message. Have a nice snow-free or fire-free evening as we see what's going on in LA at the moment. Stay safe where you are and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and thanks to Matt Latham from Pick a Disc for being our guest. This is the last one of our current season. While we break before the next one, you can reach out to us. Things have changed a little bit. We are still on Instagram for now at Underrated Music Pod. We are at Blue Sky. You can go and find the link to that in our show notes or in our link tree, which is in this episode. And we have unfortunately deleted our Twitter X account due to #events. Let's see what happens, music fans, but I really hope that you have enjoyed this season, that you're staying safe wherever you are, that you're able to enjoy your favourite bands, buying music, streaming music, buying merch, the usual. And if you want to get in touch with us in a longer form, you can also email us actually at overunderatedmusicpod@gmail.com. We often forget to promote it. See you on the other side, music fans. Enjoy.